Hello everybody, welcome to another year of the Transformative Teachers webinar series. I'm Lucy Muirhead. I'll be hosting this series and I'm joined today by Rachel Oner, who I'll be introducing properly in a moment. But for now, hello Rachel, welcome.
Hello. Hi. I think I've frozen, but hopefully you can hear me. There's a bit of a glitch with Zoom, but there we go. It started already. Hi.
Oh, well, never mind. So I guess you'll freeze and come back to us, but we'll be able to continue hearing you. Okay, so we'll do a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce you properly. So welcome back to anybody who has joined us before, and a special welcome to anybody who's joining us for the first time. If you haven't already introduced yourself in the chat box, then please tell us where you are and tell us what time it is where you are. I'm always interested to know if people are joining us in the middle of the night or early in the morning. It's 4 p.m. here. What time is it where you are? Midnight.
Yeah, midnight.
Wow, thanks for joining us, especially.
8 p.m. Well, you know, typically teachers don't know when to switch off, do we? We do work far too long hours, but midnight and 11 o'clock in Thailand, 1 a.m. there. Goodness me.
Hi.
Wow.
Dinner time for a lot of people.
What dedication. Isn't that wonderful?
It's amazing. Gosh.
Brilliant. And just lovely to see. So, as I said in chat, so many corners of the world represented today. Isn't it wonderful?
You know, I wonder just how many countries there are represented here.
We'll have to do a count later, won't we? We'll have to do a count. Okay.
All right. So I'll just do a little housekeeping for everybody attending. I'll share my screen again briefly. So this webinar will last for 1 hour. We'll be finished by 5 o'clock UK time. There will be the recording of this webinar and all the webinars. Look out for information in your email. You'll receive an email when the recording is available with a link to it. The slides aren't available separately, but of course you'll be able to see all the information included within the recording, and Rachel has got some extra links for you that she'll tell you about in her talk today. In terms of your view, you should be able to see myself and Rachel, but your video and microphone are off. We've got almost 200 people with us already today, so I'm sure you can understand why we can't have all the microphones on. However, we really want to hear from you. So you can put things in the chat box as we go along. Please feel free to share ideas and information with each other. That's a really big part of this series, is that it's an opportunity for all the attendees to come together and just, it's a community talk. So please do use the chat box. And if you have any particular questions for Rachel, you can also use the Q&A box. And we will try to answer all of your queries as we go along. So Rachel, I will be interrupting you, I'm afraid, from time to time.
No worries.
Pick your brains. Oh, one more thing about the chat box. There are two possibilities when you're typing in the chat box. There's a little drop-down option to either send your message to everybody or just to the hosts and panelists. So if you want to be part of the conversation with everybody, make sure you've selected everybody from your drop-down box. Okay, so I think that's everything for now. So I shall introduce Rachel to you and then hand over. So, well, Rachel is an ESOL and English specialist who provides staff training and support on a number of teaching and learning topics. She has got an absolutely fascinating career history. She's done so many things and she's involved in lots of different organizations and projects. And I know she'll be sharing her LinkedIn and contact details at the end. So I do recommend you look her up. We are, needless to say, delighted to have Rachel with us today. So Rachel, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. What a lovely warm welcome. I feel very humbled and I'm very honoured and pleased to be asked to deliver this webinar today also, and welcome to everybody, whatever your day time of day, morning, middle of the night, I do appreciate you taking the time to come and listen to this webinar. So I'm going to be talking to you for the next hour about active reading, using in particular authentic materials. And I'm going to be looking at a variety of authentic materials in the English classroom, in the ESOL classroom. And I'd really like to show you how they can be used to promote a variety of reading skills, including critical thinking. But if you're thinking, well, critical thinking, does that sound a little bit high level? Well, if you're concerned that maybe authentic materials are maybe too challenging for very, very low levels, I'd like to demonstrate that they can be equally as useful for an entry-level, beginner-level class as they might be for higher levels or even mixed abilities. And they can also, authentic materials can really nicely lend themselves to the development of the other skills areas, such as writing, speaking, and listening. So, and also just to say that I am going to make you work ideas and suggestions into your chat pane. So hopefully most of you, by the looks of it, have found your chat pane already. And I'm going to start you off, there you go, by asking you to write into chat, because I would like you to put into chat what you think authentic materials actually are. They're one of my favorite resources to use in the English classroom. I've said they're really useful, but what do you think they are? Okay, so right, people, gosh, you're quick off the mark. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read all of these so quickly, but we've got here things that aren't graded, real life materials. So we've got some specific, it's going so fast, got some specific examples here, such as leaflets, forms, newspapers, timetables, that's a good one. Anything not edited for English language teaching purposes, says Sergio, absolutely. Something which hasn't been graded yet. Ads, again, we've got that. Oh, post-it notes, real life text such as magazines, pay slips. Oh, yes, absolutely. Without any personal details, though, I hope you take those out. Shop signs, street signs. Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah, brilliant. Keep them coming in. Blogs, prescriptions, somebody has said. You certainly have got the idea. I'm pretty sure you know the answer to this question. Well done. Thank you very much. So yes, what are authentic materials? They are exactly what Sergio said a little while ago. He took the words out of my mouth. So they're anything where they're actually written for first language speaker, for the target audience, and they're in the original form. So they haven't been edited, not tailored, not graded, leveled in any which way for the classroom. So exactly that. So here's a list of my suggestions about, and you've mentioned most of these already, and they keep coming up into chat there. That's such a lively chat. It's wonderful. So we've got newspapers, magazine articles, web pages, leaflets and posters, my favorite, infographics, which you might know, might not know, but I'm going to come back to those. Podcasts, brilliant podcasts. There's so many out there in any topic that you could possibly think of. TV, radio programs, videos, films, and songs. Brilliant. So that list by all means, it's not, inclusive. That's not a conclusive list. We've got plenty more examples of those. But why I like authentic materials is I think that they really are very good for differentiation, so a mixed level class. And they're also great for preparing for assessment, because in many of our exams and our assessments, we're not always sure what the topic is going to be. So we can expose our learners to a variety of topics and a variety of authentic resources to get them used to having that surprise element of what the text might be as well. So why should we use them? Okay, why should we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my top reasons for wanting to use authentic materials. Well, the first one, quite obvious really, it replicates real life. Okay, so let's set this clear. I'm not saying that a prepared written worksheet or a course book doesn't have its place, because of course it does, because it's developing specific targeted skills and particular language areas. However, sometimes they can be a little bit out of the learner's context, if you like, and potentially a little bit artificial, and they can focus the learner's attention so much on a particular language element, that they may not necessarily make kind of like the normal natural connections in their reading to other language in the text that will help them in general improve their overall language knowledge and see how words and sentences and text level is connected. So I use a lot of leaflets, okay? I use a lot of them. And why do I use them? Because they're free. I don't have to pay for them. And who doesn't like the word free? We all like the word free. And they're a time saver. Now, most of us in our lives as teachers, we've spent hours and hours and hours preparing worksheets, okay? Sometimes we really enjoy it. Sometimes we think, oh no, have I got time to do this? I can grab a leaflet and I haven't had to prepare that worksheet. Active learning, but what does that actually mean? Well, active learning is a case of you, and we're going to have a look at this in a bit more detail, a case of the learner, as I said, making natural connections, potentially looking back into their existing knowledge about what they already know about the language or the topic, and they are scanning the page actively, looking for other connections, which will give them a hint as to the meaning of the text. I said it before, and we're going to go on to explore this in detail, that they give really good, flexible opportunities to practice speaking, listening, reading, and writing as an extension to whatever activity that you are doing. And I think this one is very important. Even if your learners are a very low level, if you've given them a text which you think, I'm not sure they're going to understand most of the vocabulary here, but I'll give it a go. Once they have had a go and they've picked out meaning and they've worked on it to the best of their ability, they can have an enormous sense of achievement from having understood that piece of text in a greater way by doing it in your class, in your activities. And lastly, very importantly, the English that they're going to be exposed to in this authentic text occurs naturally, doesn't it? Because it is, everyday speak, or a particular type of language targeted for sales or information, etc., which are styles that, of course, they will also need to practice and get familiar with in their teaching, in their learning.
Rachel, could I ask you to just elaborate a little bit more about the active learning? Because that seems to be an area where so many students struggle. And if it's a skill they can develop more, it gives them a lot more power and agency over their own learning.
Absolutely. And there's a question, and we could talk for another hour potentially about the difference between passive reading and active reading. And passive reading is potentially where you are going through a text and you're kind of translating a word and just getting the meaning of it. Where active learning is much more than that. It's making many more connections as you're reading. So you would be looking potentially, I don't know what this word means, but let's see if I can read around that word and try and gain some understanding of the meaning by the words that go around it. Can I make any links? And those links often come from their prior knowledge, or what we call schema, which is loads of information buried away in the brain that we just need to kind of like activate and bring alive again, and so they can make those current connections with what they're reading.
So I find that students have all these skills available, but they don't realize that they can apply them when they're learning English as a foreign language. But it's all of these things they do with their own language without realizing it.
Absolutely. And exactly as Paul the Pole, what an interesting Zoom name you've got there, Paul. Paul has just said that authentic materials often have interesting content as well. And this is a big point that I like to make about authentic materials, because I wish I had a camera that you could see my desk at the moment, because I've sadly got piles of these things, and I've got them categorized into interest areas, vocational areas that potentially our learners might be working in, for example. And it's really easy, as you know, and topical, exactly. If you know what the interests of the learners are, or what their job is, or what job they aspire to do, you can find a leaflet, material, brochure, poster tailored around that topic, so you can make it much more engaging for them as well.
And that's fundamental, isn't it, to their own success, and as you say, their sense of achievement.
Absolutely. If a learner isn't engaged, I'm not quite convinced that they're going to make the learning occur naturally. But the options there to switch off, disengage are much greater, aren't they? Let's face it. I think we can all remember some texts that were a bit dry or boring from school, and you can't really remember the language point that you were trying to learn in that occasion. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, so let's focus on reading then. Let's focus on reading because that's what we're here for. So what are some of my favorites then? You've mentioned these already. I like this. Lucy says, dull, 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 my French textbooks. Oh, yes. Okay. Junk mail and information leaflets. Now, I'm not quite sure with every country that's represented here today, whether it's the same for you, but certainly in the UK, we get plenty of what we call junk mail comes through our doors. Leaflets, adverts, maybe menus from local takeaways. It could be anything, and we get lots of them. We really do. You might also get junk emails as well. So, unsolicited emails from companies that you may once have shared your email address with. Websites are fantastic for developing reading as well, because, you've got plenty of material there, haven't you? You've got, links to further pages. You can choose a website that suits the interest area of your learners. Coupons now, let's think for that for a minute. Coupons, what do I mean by coupon? Well, a coupon might be something that you've been given in a shop, or might come in a magazine that you might cut out for money off a particular product, or a free cinema visit. It could be anything. And coupons usually have quite a bit of text to them. So they can be used in class as well. And we're going to examine some of these in a little while, okay? Food labels, really interesting. Very, very good for vocabulary development. It's amazing how many synonyms that you might have within one particular food label. If you think of the word sugar, you've possibly got a label that says fructose, sucrose. You've got a lot of them there, and you can explore, you can do dictionary work, etc. Now, how about this? This is an old staple, really, isn't it? It's using songs in an English classroom. But we're thinking about reading, so we can print off some lyrics. Oh yes, medicines as well, says Heather. That's a good one. So song lyrics can be really, really useful also. And lastly, infographics, which I will come back to, as I said, in a little while. They're super, super, super useful. So I think those 6 examples there of authentic resources for reading are particularly useful. And we're going to go on to just unpick it in a little while and find out exactly what might be, useful when we've got that resource to develop reading. But I want to have just a quick reflection, because we said at the very beginning that authentic materials are made for an audience, written for an audience, and they're not graded. So can you think of any pitfalls, any disadvantages to using authentic materials in your classroom? So find your chat again and put in there any kind of negatives or pitfalls that you might, I don't even need to finish a sentence, you're away, this is amazing. So they could be too wordy, colloquial language, yes. Grammar might be too advanced, okay? Spelling in jargon, that's a really good one, okay? Students might not see the point, okay? So it might depend on how you introduce it and explain and set up your activity. Cultural references and local references, yeah, absolutely. Phrasal, lots of unknown vocabulary. Students could be put off by thinking that it is too difficult. I think that's probably quite high on the list of pitfalls to think about, yeah. Acronyms, advert speak, so tailored specific language for specific purposes for persuasion, for example, can be very challenging, can't it? Oh, difficult to read fonts. Don't get me started on that one. Anybody who's got a SEND need, a dyslexia or any other kind of reading difficulties, small print can be challenging, so you might want to have a magnifier ready. Exactly. Okay, keep them coming in. So my sort of 3 points to think about with pitfalls then is engaging. So think about it. Think about, why am I choosing this particular authentic resource? Is it going to be of interest to my learners? Is it a topic that they'll find interesting? Is it linked to their study or their work aspirations, their hobbies, etc., etc.? Or is it something very topical that everybody is talking about in the news that I know that they will engage with? The learner's perception of that really refers to what you were saying in your chat, your lovely comments you were saying about they might think it's too difficult. Okay, so we have to find a way of getting across what exactly we want to achieve by presenting them with this authentic resource. And so what's your leveling? So if you have got a very text heavy authentic resource and you've got a very low level class, a beginner and entry 1 class, for example, then of course you might want to think about choosing another authentic material with slightly less text in it. Okay. It can be hard to fit into a syllabus or curriculum, says Robert. I do agree with that one. But then I think what we need to do is to somehow think about what is the actual language, what are the actual language points that I can make from this authentic resources to fit into my curriculum as a more engaging way of developing that language point.
So Rachel, it seems that with quite a few of the pitfalls, if the teacher sets up the activity and presents the activity in a particular way, then a lot of those pitfalls can become benefits. Like the material being much higher than the student's level can give the students a really good sense of achievement if they've understood some of the key things. Would you say?
I do think that's exactly it. And I think what I mentioned at the beginning about differentiation, and you can think about if you've got a class that you've got maybe different levels in, as we do in the UK. I don't know about all of your countries, but we very often have mixed level abilities in the same class. You can think about what you're asking that particular group of learners a particular level to do, and are you going to set a slightly different tasks to the higher level learners in the class? How are you going to explain it, and what are you going to ask them to get to achieve? What outcome? How are they going to present their work even in doing it? So whereas you've saved time in preparing the resource, you do have to think a little bit more about your delivery of instructions and your how you want them to work and present their outcome, basically.
I noticed in the chat, in fact, there's a bit of discussion about editing the materials, but that can be a huge amount of work, can't it? And as other people have said, it takes away perhaps from the authenticity.
It can. I mean, I'm going to go on to talk about infographics, and there is an opportunity to edit sort of an infographic, if you like. And I would say if you're editing, say, a leaflet or a brochure or a web page, and you've maybe printed it out or saved it, I would limit your editing to maybe taking out some of the text. I wouldn't change any of the language at first. Not at this point.
That sounds very doable.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so right then, I'm going to get you to think about, let's all chip in chat. How can we actually use these resources then? Let's get our thinking hats on, what we do best as teachers. Let's analyze and come up with ideas. So websites at first. What can we do if we have websites that we want to use? Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples, and I'd like you to put more into chat as we go along. So my first one would be, I think that we could potentially compare prices from various different shops. Okay, so I think we could get them a target of maybe looking for one product and get them to find out how much it costs on different websites. Okay, that's something that we could possibly do. We could get them to look at how they could potentially apply for a membership for something. Nowadays, we rarely have to fill in forms now when we want to apply for a job, go for a gym, open a bank account even. It's very little in terms of paper and pen filling in forms. A lot of it is online. So we could have a little practice of those kind of things. Some of them have got editable PDFs that might draw down. There's all sorts of things that you can do. But we can examine the job application or the bank application or the gym membership form first and analyse what kind of information that they are asking for. And Lucy said their form filling is incredibly useful for real life. We can't get away from filling in forms. It happens all the time, doesn't it? Now, if you've got really high levels in your class, and I'm thinking about critical thinking here, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but it's hopefully getting your ideas as they are coming into chat there. High levels could potentially look at bias on news sites. Now, bias is something that's very topical. Some people here might be dealing with ESOL learners who might be on other programs of study, like functional skills, for example, where you have to look really closely at bias at higher levels. So you can have a look at 2 different websites and look at bias. And then a classic one, spelling. Yeah, the spelling and meaning of words, and sound can help you perfect your pronunciation as well. So there's a lot of tools now on websites with sort of assistive technology where you can click on a word and it can pronounce it back to you. Immersive Reader is available on just about every website. So there's lots of analysis, I'll get my tongue into gear in a minute, lots of analysis you can do around word level and spelling. Okay, so we've got exams soon and students struggle with the organizational features of text. Great to use real examples to show students. Absolutely, because our students, a lot of younger generation, I'm going to make a generalization here now, but a lot of our younger generations now don't read as much as we perhaps did, us oldies like me. And potentially but they don't read as much, or the same things, I should say. They might not read as many novels or potentially magazine cover to cover, but they underestimate how much reading they're actually doing on a daily basis in terms of on their phones, even if it's just reading a social media post, but it's around them, adverts on televisions, billboards, posters, etc., etc. Loads of lovely ideas coming in here about, I love clickbait because it gets them to read, says Kelly. Absolutely, yeah, it does indeed. Okay, so moving on, coupons then. Well, this is very, very good, obviously, for checking for savings and embedding maths work as well, if you have to do that. Working out the true value. Is this coupon worth it? Yeah, you could maybe combine your coupon with looking at websites. Now, if you've got a coupon that you take into class that is from a particular supermarket, they're very naughty supermarkets. They lull you into thinking that you're making a good saving. Well, actually, if you compare the price to the normal price on the shelf, it might not be such a good saving. And there's an awful lot of reading that's involved in that, critical thinking, isn't there? So that's another one. Kinner has said, look at universities online and state why they want to choose this university and the program they would like to enroll in. Absolutely, extension from that, Kin. You could perhaps say, let's go on and have a closer look at their chosen town that university is based in. What kind of things are there? What are there? Is it there a good social, scene there? Is there places of interest? Are there clubs? Is there good shopping centres? There's so much they can do by exploring websites. Back to coupons then. They can check for dates. They can have a whole discussion on the pressures to buy. So here you see we're starting to expand this activity from reading into speaking, where we can get them into a good discussion about this coupon. I've got it in the back of my mind. I've got to use it by next Friday. And or if I don't use this now and get that bargain, I'll have missed out. But is it a bargain? Have you missed out? Let's get them to analyze it. So read the small print. Is it all it seems? That's a really good point, isn't it? Okay, so I can see ideas are flowing. I'm getting the creative juices going tonight. I can see that in chat. This is brilliant. So let's go with some more ideas. How about recipes for a classic idea? And I have to say, something that generally our ESOL students in particular love to talk about, food. We all love to talk about food, don't we? So what can we use with recipes? Of course, we start at word level and it's vocabulary, isn't it? We might have, let's see, I take off the internet 2 recipes for a similar dish. Let's say a lasagna or something like that, or a pasta dish. And we have a look at it. One might be American English and one might be UK English. And so courgette, we call them in the UK. The Americans call them zucchini, for example. We could analyze the difference in vocabulary, couldn't we? And maybe have a whole discussion about how potentially vocabulary can be, similar or different in their own countries to a neighbouring country. It's a fantastic way to look at, to read and examine the form of verbs. Okay, we all know we need to have a verb in a sentence, and they can be in a multitude of ways. in a recipe, we've got imperatives, haven't we? We've got command words, for example, and synonyms as well. And very much key to being an active reader is the sequencing of ideas. Of course, a recipe is a perfect sequence, isn't it? First you do this, second you do that, and third you do the other. You might then want to say, okay, what can I do? I can get them to look at this recipe, read it. They could potentially then write down a similar recipe in their country, for example. How about this one? Blind reading. Take away some of the title, the name of the dish, take away the photo from the recipe and get them to read it up a little bit like Sharon is saying, cut up the recipe and reorder it. That's perfect sequencing activity. Or in its form, say, let's read this. What do you think they're making here? What do you think they're making here? And they can have a good old guess. Put them in teams, they work together. I can see so much work going on, so much teamwork going on, such activity in their reading and critical thinking. It's a brilliant one, that one. And staying with the theme of food labels. Of course, as we mentioned before with coupons, it's a great way to practice vocabulary, guess the meanings of sugar, for example. How about this one? You've got a target here. I want you to identify healthy and unhealthy ingredients in this food label. I think we could really have a full lesson on that one. And what could it lead on to? It could lead on to writing a presentation or a summary about healthy or unhealthy foods. It could lead on to a discussion of why this particular product that you might be buying with this label is unhealthy, and it would be much healthier to make it yourself. So there, you've gone on from reading to writing and speaking and listening. Great activities. And then the last one, of course, embed maths. Yes, because maths and English are two areas that we need to promote, and how much maths is in food labels, percentages, grams, all sorts of weight. Again, identify vocabulary, etc. Kate says, use the healthy vocabulary to do countable and uncountables. Absolutely. Isn't that something that our learners can really struggle with? Countables and uncountables, brilliant.
So Rachel, it seems that especially the topic of food, which, as you say, is such an important subject, even more so when people are studying away from home, and the food is what they think about the most, I find, apart from family. It seems that with this topic, there's so many different lessons that you can do just from this starting point, that it's almost like one recipe can then easily lead to a few hours of lesson.
Well, do you know, I often think about this topic of authentic resources is, imagine you turn up to school, to college, etc., and you suddenly are told your colleague is off ill, you're going to have to cover that class. I'm really sorry. It's happened to all of us, hasn't it? But you've got nothing prepared at all. But you say, okay, what's the level of class? What can I do? And then you say, okay, I'm going to delve into my little box of leaflets or whatever, and I'm going to run with it. And whether it is, you know, a recipe that you've got, or maybe, how about this one I've got here, which is like it's actual real packaging for some vegetarian sausages. That's real life, isn't it? People will recognize those. You can go into that class, you can set them some basic activities around reading, and then you can say, right, think on what can I do to extend this? Let's get them to discuss it. Let's get them then to write down a recipe using those vegetarian sausages. You've got your hour, 2 hours full, I think. You really have.
So this is a great way for the teacher to create a platform for the students to bring their own ideas, what's important to them, what they want to share, which is going to be very motivating for students. And it also sounds like maybe a good way for less experienced teachers perhaps to experiment with this kind of teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, I think it's something which you might not have the confidence to do if you're a new teacher and you're unsure about it. It might be a little bit sort of, nerve-wracking at the beginning. How can I feel like I need to have a really structured plan and I need to have X number of worksheets, etc., etc. It does take a little bit of confidence to do, and an experience to get there, but you will get there. And once you've done it a few times, and also, one of the things that I really do like about using authentic materials, I mentioned differentiation, and this could be where you're putting groups within your class, of same levels to work together, or a stronger with a weaker, etc., to support each other. There's also a form of differentiation called low floor, high ceiling. And basically what that means is your low floor is where you've got a starting point. So that is your authentic resource. And so you might say to your lower levels, just write down the words you recognize there for food, okay? And make a list, write it on a piece of paper for me. And they do that. And then you say, now I want you to write a sentence, even if it's just a basic simple sentence like, I like courgettes. I like cooking with courgettes. And then going up to the higher levels in your group, you say to them, okay, what do you think you could do with this? What kind of information would you like? Would you like to write a recipe? Give them a couple of examples. Would you like to write a recipe? Would you like to write a little article for a magazine saying why this is unhealthy? Have a think about it and among yourselves decide on what you want to do. And why I like low floor, high ceiling is because you're giving a bit of ownership to learners, and they love that. They love having a say in what they're going to do and what they're going to produce. And the sense of achievement can be really great. This frees you up as the teacher to maybe, mingle, go round and have a little look, support the lower level learners more, keep checking, you all right over there? You need any help? What you're presenting again, what you're compiling? Oh, brilliant, carry on with it, It's really useful to use in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. And I think, as one person has said in the chat, it's also really fun for the teacher. Yes. When you've got that practice and that experience. It's great. You can see the students really enjoying themselves, and it's very it's teaching unplugged, really.
It is. That's a lovely way. It's a really nice phrase to use, teaching unplugged. I like that. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple more examples. Song lyrics then. We all love using songs in class. I've done it many times. But one of the most DART activities, anyone know what DART stands for? Directed activities related to text. Basically, you will all know a gap fill activity. You've got a text, you've got a gap, maybe you've got a list of the words and you've got to find the correct word and put in the gap. That's a DART activity. So is sequencing, so is predicting what comes next. That's very useful and very traditional, I would say, with using song lyrics for reading. Let's think about how we could use it a little bit more than just sort of gap fill, etc. Maybe lower levels can explore vocab phonetically. Okay, that's something that you could get them to do. Choose some particular words that might be challenging. Get them to look at the sounds, practice it, maybe online, play the sound back, explore the pronunciation behind the words. Read, spot the expressions, the idioms, the colloquialisms even that might be used in songs. Okay, have they ever heard that in real life? Have they ever seen it in an advert? Okay, explore the songs and a little bit more. Judy, what about this one? Ask them to change the lyrics. Absolutely. And sometimes, very often a song has got a story, hasn't it? It could be emotive. It's very often about love or tragedy or hopes and desires. And maybe you can get them to talk about that and personalize it. What would they do in those circumstances? And then they could write about, what they would do in those circumstances. Lucy, think of Bob Marley's Get Up, Stand Up for Your Rights. I would love a bit of Bob Marley. Absolutely. I like that idea. And then back to what we started off by, junk mail and information leaflets. Okay, the possibilities are endless, absolutely endless. And what I want to do is I just want to have a really quick focus on it in a bit more detail, okay? So what I've got on screen now is an animal rescue, animal protection society. So in England, the Royal Society for Protection of Cruelty and Against Cruelty to Animals, okay? Now, this leaflet that you can see on screen, I want you to have a little bit of an idea about how we could use it in class, really. And what I'm going to do, you can see it, I'm going to bring it up on screen in a little bit closer at the moment. Let's think how we can use it to develop language, okay? So I've put here your ESOL levels. Now, some of you who are zooming in from other countries might not be familiar with these entry levels really, but entry 1 is our typical beginner and level 2 is kind of our upper intermediate level really. So if you had that animal leaflet, what do you think you could do to develop language for an entry 1, for example, or an entry 2, or a level 1 and level 2? Quick thinking activity, don't want you to think about this too much. Pop into chat any ideas that immediately come to mind for this leaflet. So Senna has started already about spotting animal words. We've got comparing pets here. Find the animals that the RSPCA works with. Absolutely. So let me just get this leaflet up on screen a little bit more closely. So we've got photos here of different animals, mostly cats and dogs and birds, haven't we? Okay. We've got here, oh, they're looking for volunteers. Okay. So your higher levels might think about volunteering. There might be something there that you can do there. Contact details. Okay, different addresses we've got on the leaflet. Here we've got more text. You might not want to give them the whole thing, but there is a breakdown of the charity. They talk about how they need your money because they're a charity. Okay, so you talk about fundraising and what money pays for, what a certain amount of money pays for. Okay, you could talk about vets. They talk about charity shops. There's lots and lots of information there. So let's see. I love what Juliet has just said. Google strange words like ferret. I absolutely love that. Indeed. Not that many people have a ferret as a pet. There are some, but not that many. So looking right back at the when to use capital letters. So our lower levels there. Absolutely. We've got number, money, spotting telephone numbers. So a little bit higher up, maybe we can look at domestic and wild animals. Absolutely. So higher up again, Kin has said about paraphrasing the text, rewording, making sure that you've understood what you've read by checking for understanding with your learners, getting them to repeat back what they've said, etc. SPAG, spelling, punctuation and grammar, says Cam. Perfect, perfect. Lucy says, teach them about charity shops that are a very English thing. They are indeed. Many of our students will say, I don't know what they are at all. Okay. Oh, Natalia, combining. How about this? Natalia's going to combine, I think here, our animal leaflet with one of those job application forms we had a look at earlier, and they're going to apply for a job at the RS. Oh, I love that. Well done. Okay, right, Anne, I'm going to answer your question next about how do I get hold of these leaflets. I'm going to answer that question. Thank you. Benefits of having a dog at home. You're talking to somebody who not that long ago got a puppy, and I can tell you they're hard work, but they bring lots of benefits. Okay, keep those ideas coming in. I'm going to move on because I'm conscious of time. Thank you. Just to say that if a subject like there, I chose pets, animals, dogs. There are some cultures where that can be a little bit culturally sensitive and you might not want to use it in class. So you might think about using something like a tourist leaflet, for example. So the question, how do I get hold of some of these leaflets? Now, you don't live in the UK and you don't have this stuff landing through your door every day. So what do? You want to get hold of some English authentic resources. Well, quite simply, one of the things I would do is I would go onto Google. But not your Google in your country. I would go on to the UK Google. And I think Lucy or Luke is going to put in the Google UK link for you. If not, it's very easy to find via your Google. Just put Google UK. So when you go onto Google UK and type in there, animal charity leaflet PDF, for example, London tourist leaflet PDF, and you'll be surprised just how many of these leaflets or recipes are available as PDF forms. Okay, there's lots of them. Juliet says libraries have loads of leaflets for tourists. Absolutely, they do. Absolutely. And even in your countries, if you manage to go to potentially somewhere like a tourist information or a cultural centre or something like that, you might get some authentic resources about London, for example.
And don't you find as well, Rachel, that you can collect these kinds of things and then just keep a folder of them? And then I used to just open up the folder in class and hand some things out and use them time and time again, collect them back. So once you've got them, you've got them forever.
Absolutely. Some things can date, some things can, you know, if you picked up a tourist leaflet about, you know, you don't really want to be showing them a tourist leaflet from 1997. Probably half the audience today is not born in 1997, but anyway, you want to have something reasonably, but yes, generally they're really good. They're really good. Okay. So we want to, our aim really, as we said at the beginning, is we want them to be more focused readers really. And the fact that you're using a resource that's so useful for differentiation, mixed level classes, it gives you the opportunities to, as I said before, use that opportunity for higher levels to shine a little bit more and become confident and work a little bit harder, if you like. A purpose for reading, well, if they see that your work that you set is effective, okay, it gives you a real purpose for reading. So if they see a text is authentic and relevant and engaging, they're much more likely to participate in the learning and by default learn better, I think. It focuses their attention, definitely focuses their attention, especially if you've chosen a resource tailored to their interests. And if they're already interested and they see the point of it, they can take part more in looking at why that particular language structure or that colloquial language is used in that particular example. It helps them to think actively, as I said before. Now, don't forget this, delving into their schema, getting them to really analyze on vocabulary that they already know, but from a different scenario, a different situation, and make those connections is incredibly important. So active reading. And it encourages them to monitor their own comprehension, get them constantly, checking your instructions, feeding back what they've understood, get them to work in pairs or groups and explain what they think this leaflet is all about, for example. Last point on this slide, and really important, it's really helping them to review the content of what they have just studied, relate what they have learned to what they already know, and be able to practice it potentially in a different scenario or in a different topic. I'm just glancing at chat there. Yeah, some people are going on about some Kahoot and some lovely apps which will really help with this as well. Yeah, absolutely. I love this. Okay, infographics. Now, I alluded to something called infographics earlier on. Next to leaflets, infographics are definitely my second favourite authentic or resource to use for reading practice in the classroom. So pop into chat for me if you think you know what an infographic is.
And Rachel, I think you have got an eye on the clock anyway, haven't you? But there's 10 minutes
yeah,
left, and
no worries.
We're covering the Q&As as we go along, so
we are.
You don't need to leave time at the end for that.
No worries, that's no worries. So yeah, picture and information, poster with specific information. No clue, says Carmen. No worries, all will be revealed. A graphic picture which contains, yes, absolutely. Brilliant. Pictures with short text, you've got the idea. There we go. An infographics then is information that is presented graphically, basically. It's imagery, it could have charts, minimal text usually, yeah, And it gives a good overview of a topic. Now, I see a lot of, in the UK, we've had a lot of public information, government information that's been presented in infographics. This is one that those of you in the UK may recognise. I've seen this on the walls of doctors' surgeries and hospitals and clinics, and it's all about healthy eating and the proportion of the different food types that we should be eating. And as you see from that, that's actually mostly pictures, isn't it? There's not an awful lot of words there, but there is still reading and critical reading that can take place. So just as I like authentic materials, I love infographics too, and I call them a gift to the tutor. Again, there's that word, free, and there's so many of them, really are so many of them. They look engaging. Why do they look engaging? Because they've got pictures, to be honest, and they haven't got so much text that make you go, oh God, I've got to read all this text. Oh, I don't know if I've got the effort to do that tonight. Nope, they look accessible, don't they? There's a wide range of them, and you can make them age and topic appropriate to your learners as well. Not text heavy, as I said before. Really key, obviously, anybody here who's ever learned a language or teaches a language knows that images set a context. And once you've done that, that aids understanding to the vocabulary or the language point that you're trying to make, okay? There has a lot of information in one easy to read format, and you can embed a little bit of maths or other skills, such as digital skills, for example. And once again, I think they're really good for differentiation. There's one here on eBay, which talks about what parts of the UK spend more money on eBay. It's probably my hometown, but don't tell my husband how much I spend on eBay. And then also potentially for younger groups, The Big Bang Theory, that lovely comedy from the US. There's one I found on Sheldon's t-shirts, and somebody has sat down and actually worked out all of the t-shirts he's worn in every single program throughout however many series there are, and there's got a percentage of these t-shirts on screen time. There we go. Say no more.
So oh gosh, that's incredible, Rachel. But I see that really you can use authentic materials with all different ages as well as different levels. So it's just a matter of the teacher taking the time to look for something and find something that they think would be interesting and relevant to their students, and then think a bit about how to use it in the classroom.
Absolutely, spot on, absolutely. And with that respect, because somebody actually there, Kate has said, it doesn't fall, well, it does fall into authentic text in a way, because you can create your own infographics on canva.com or even on PowerPoint, to be honest with you. And if it's authentic because you're choosing an authentic topic and maybe authentic pictures, then why not? You're just using that material that's out there and making it yourself. So entry level in ESOL, please pop these into chat as we go along. But, you know, you can use as much or as little text or information as you want. The images, as I said before, aid understanding, and they can promote discussion or simplified tasks. Now, why I love this, as I've said before, authentic materials and infographics give you the perfect opportunity to maximize the development of other skills areas, okay? So reading, writing, reading can lead to writing, and speaking, listening activities. So if you have any other ideas for differentiation and for lower levels with infographics, do pop them into chat as I go through the next couple of slides. Yeah, Barbara, they are great to prepare and support for a speaking task. Yeah, absolutely. They're a little bit less daunting than maybe a cue card that says, you are blah, 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 and you want to and present to the class or talk in your group. They're a little bit less daunting. At least you've got some material and some ideas. ESOL relevance, English relevance, I found lots of them. I found this one here, which is education around the world. There's facts about the UK, and this lovely one about breakfast all around the world, what countries eat what, and, you know, it's some really lovely stuff out there on infographics. And you're not going to go away without a present tonight, okay, because I'm generous. I want to give you a present. And I've got a link which is shortly coming into chat for you. There you go, Lucy, thank you. This is a Padlet, which is a way to collate information. And on here, sadly, I've stored about 180 infographics. Oh my gosh, what a sad woman she is, they must say. Spend all her time saving infographics. It's collated over a long time, I promise you. And if you open that Padlet and you press Control and F on your keyboard, which is your standard find, and say you typed in food or education or animals, it will automatically show you which infographics are on that topic. Okay, so you've got a present tonight. You've got lots and lots of ideas tonight to take away. Hopefully I've got you thinking about it, and you realize, yeah, this one resource might be easier to use for various different levels. But because I'm a teacher, I'm going to set you homework, okay? Because that's my privilege in life, is to set homework to my students. So what I want you to do, I want you to task yourself to this. I want you to find an authentic material you've got lying around your home, or that you've identified as a PDF or something online, okay? That's task one. Then I want you just to get a bit of paper, put a few bullet point notes about how you might use it in your classroom, principally for reading, but then other skills as well. And then just to really firm this up, make it a little bit more session planning, identify the level of learner and how you're going to assess the learning. Okay, think about how you're going to use it. So that's that. I'm going to finish off with a poll, which my lovely colleagues are now going to put on screen for you. Our last bit of interactivity tonight is our poll. So that's going to come up on screen any second. And what I'd like you to do, very, very simple. So in light of today's session, I want you to say, will you be using authentic materials more in your classes now? Yes, no, or you're not sure. Oh, voting started. Oh, you're very quick with Zoom and polls, I have to say. Well, I think I know where this is going. It's not finished yet, but I can see where it's going, which delights me. So we're almost, you're still voting, but I can't see this changing dramatically. So far, overwhelmingly, you're saying yes to this one. And while that's just finishing off, have we got any more questions at all in the chat or the Q&A, Lucy, or anything at all?
I think there's a couple of things in the Q&A, but I'm not quite sure. I think they might be a bit outside of your remit for this talk.
Okay.
Interesting questions, but maybe something more for a sort of discussion among teachers than questions to you, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Hendry's got a useful one there. It's quite a difficult question, Hendry, that you've asked there. I've got in my pack of authentic materials, I've got them put into vocational areas, as I said before. And if I'm ever teaching an ESOL learner who's studying potentially on a construction course or a catering course, I've found some resources that are really tailored to that. And I think it can also help build up their sort of vocational vocabulary as well.
Rachel, just one thing about that we discussed when we met a couple of weeks ago on Zoom. We found as well that even with these kinds of materials, you could even just use authentic materials as a little 5-minute activity at the beginning or the end of a class, couldn't you? Absolutely. So if somebody's a little bit nervous about doing this kind of thing, you don't have to build a whole lesson around it. You could just give some leaflets out just to look at in the last few minutes, see how it goes. You know, just for a little bit of discussion and use them. It's very flexible, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely it is. So just as we've got a minute or so left, I just quickly mention that we're going to make this available to you. Okay, so I've compiled a short document which gives you some useful links, okay, to working with authentic materials. So there's some articles at the top there from various websites on using authentic materials, some on using songs. There's the link again to my Infographics Padlet. There's the link again to the UK Google, and then some suggested things that you can type into UK Google to try and find out And if not, I've actually got some links to some PDFs there as well that you can use in class. Museums, for example, that's a great one as well. A zoo leaflet, a recycling leaflet, what to do with your rubbish, etc. Recipes, menus, animal charity food labels. If you click on Google Images and you type in food labels, you'll get loads of sample labels as well. And then finally, just at the bottom of that, if you want to contact me, ask me any questions or anything that I've missed tonight, I'm more than happy for you to get in contact with me on LinkedIn or Twitter as well. So at the end of our poll then, 95% of you have said that you're going to be using them. So I'm delighted. I'm absolutely delighted at that. And, you know, by all means, you know, post on Twitter, tag me in on just how you're using them, and then we can get an idea.
Great. And so for all of this information, I mean, Rachel, honestly, I can't believe how many ideas and suggestions you've packed into this hour. That was very information and inspiration dense. So thank you very, very much. And for people who want to catch up with these things again, because I know there's questions about things that people have maybe not quite caught because there's so much going on, you can watch the recording of this again. So please keep an eye on your emails. You'll get an email when the recording is ready and a link to it. And all the recordings for this and all previous and future webinars can be found on the Transformative Teachers web page. And alongside Rachel's recording, there will be the document that she's just shown you with all the links to where you can find lots and lots of resources. So you've got everything available to you, and you'll be able to see all of Rachel's slides within the recording. So don't worry, all the information she's covered will be there. Okay, so
Brilliant.
Rachel, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone in chat for making that one of the most lively hours I've spent in a long time. Thank you so much.
This is just typical Transformative Teachers attendees. This is what it's like. It's just
Brilliant.
So many ideas being shared. It's amazing. So thank you everybody for joining us. Keep an eye out on your emails for the upcoming webinars. And have a good month. And Rachel, if you want to, you know, stay for a little bit, you can turn your camera and your microphone off and see what's coming up in the chat. I can see it's full of thanks to you. So thank you, everybody. All right.
Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye.
next time. Bye.
Have a good evening, morning, night, wherever you are.
Yes.